So this short film is a compilation of pictures and videos that I took on just a little digital camera on my trip to the tepuis of Venezuela, which are these huge tabletop mountains. To give you an idea of scale, these cliffs are about 1 kilometre high, or just under, and there's also these huge stretches of rainforest that surround the mountains. Climbing them is very difficult, but we managed to get up Roraima, or up quite a well-trodden path, but Kukunan, which is this mountain, we had to go via helicopter. Roraima itself, the main mountain that we went to first, is actually located right on the border between Brazil, Guyana and Venezuela. The other reason walking up there is so difficult are these huge labyrinths of rock that were the inspiration for Up, if you've seen that film. Adrian Warren, who we were so lucky to have with us, actually took the Pixar team up there to draw and get ideas for the film. Adrian Warren has been making incredible wildlife documentaries his whole life, including lots of work with David Attenborough, so it was just such a privilege to hear some of his stories. So we were there to film this wildlife documentary, and this little creature is a tarantula that's so primitive it can't retract its fangs. And we saw lots of great stuff like this solitary sandpiper, which was migrating south from Canada. This little saber-winged hummingbird was really, really friendly. So Jesse is a Springwatch cameraman. He did most of the filming up there. And this hummingbird particularly liked him, as you'll see in a second, I think. Probably the most exciting wildlife moment was when we came across this weasel, which has never been seen up on the mountains before, so we're hoping it's a new species. Because these tepuis are isolated by their huge cliffs, the life up there has evolved separately from all the life around it in the rainforest. So there's a lot of endemic species, like this little toad is found nowhere else on the planet apart from Roraima. So this is Stuart McPherson, an expert in carnivorous plants, doing a scene for the BBC, which hopefully will be aired in a programme called A Decade of Discovery around Christmas time. And hopefully Stuart will feature in that, talking about these new carnivorous plants that he's found up on the tepuis. That's an orange-breasted falcon, which is an incredibly rare bird. So we were left on top of this mountain, and it was quite cold and windy and barren, and also dangerous, because the only time that the helicopter can come up and pick you up is in good weather, and we had 90% of the time heavy rain and wind. You can't really get the scale of how huge these ridges were, but as I say before, they were about 1 kilometre high. And it was just Jesse, Adrian and Tenzing, our cook, and I on Kukunan. And you can see all the carnivorous plants, the bromeliads. Raining again. So we camped in caves on Roraima. They're called hotels, but on Kukunan we were just on the bare rock, and my tent got very wet one night. And that was our kitchen under here, with the saber-wing coming to visit again. So when the weather did clear up, we had to make the most of it. It was so nice for me to see all this rainforest, because it just showed that there are places still left on the planet where nature is still dominant and still thrives without human interference. And just as far as the eye can see, it's just solid rainforest. Also time for a bit of posing. which was very important that we did that. This was a time lapse. I took, I can't remember how many photos it was, but it took me an hour and a half just to sitting still, taking pictures of those clouds. One of the highlights was a helicopter trip we did over the rainforest to another tepui called Urani. Here, Stuart McPherson did these crucial shots for the BBC of a new carnivorous plant species. It was quite a tense trip for two main reasons. First of all, the helicopter we were using was only very small and we were completely cramming it with all the filming equipment, and as you can see we were a little bit concerned about how low we were to some of the rocks. The second reason was that we could only afford one trip over to Urani because helicopter time's $1,500 an hour, so we had to film this right the first time and get off. And I was actually using camera number 2 for the helicopter landing scenes and the scene of Stuart running out of the helicopter to the plant. And considering I'm definitely not a cameraman, that was quite a lot of pressure for me as well. This is Urani. We had to fly around it a few times and look for these plants so we could find exactly the spot where we should land, and then just get off as soon as possible. But the flying around was actually quite dangerous because, again, we were very heavy and we were just skimming the rocks. And yeah, it was just really tense and quite fun. So we got the shots, squeezed back into the helicopter and made our way back to the savannah. And so here is the point where we finished our trip on the tepuis. We went into the rainforest later on and did some filming, which was really good fun. And we even saw some great wildlife in the savannah, but the tepuis were the most remote and special place that I've ever been. In the rainforest we came across this illegal diamond mine, and clean river water was being pumped through all the rocks and shingle to try and get the gold and the diamonds out, and the mercury that was used to separate the gold is combined with all the muddy water, and that goes downstream and has obviously massive polluting effects on the ecosystem. This is more of the wildlife we saw on the savannah. Huge spiders, and I think in a second you'll see an ant being attacked by some bigger insect. I'm not sure what it's called.